Manuela, do you want to
Yeah.
share a little bit about?
Yeah. Well, good morning,
Great.
everyone. On behalf of FENPROF, I'd like to thank AFT and the Albert Schenken Institute for the invitation and for the opportunity to discuss common problems and the strategy to address them. Discussing the role of the trade unions in the response to the democratic crisis is a very important topic in a moment where we see in many countries the rise of populist, ultra-conservative, and even fascist forces. The situation in Portugal, we'll see from the three countries, is not as bad as it is in other countries, but it was like the teacher shortage. 10 years ago, we had too many teachers, thousands of teachers that couldn't get a job, and we said we knew it would come to us, and now we have a serious problem of teacher shortage. This is, it will come later, but it has already arrived, and I'll explain why. In Portugal, in the last general elections held this year there were elections in many countries, in March, the far-right party named Chega. This means in English, enough. It's their name, so their discourse is enough corruption, enough. They quadrupled the number of votes, achieving an overall score of almost 20%. That means that in the three last elections, that political party increased its representation in parliament from they got one member in the first election, to 12 in the second, and this year, 50 members of parliament. Becoming the third largest political party. It is ironic that this has happened in the same year where we celebrate the 50th anniversary of our revolution of the 25th of April, which put an end to 48 years of fascism. It was the longest fascism period in Europe. 50 years in which the country has made remarkable progress in many areas. And we know that the democratization of access to education has greatly contributed to that progress. As the United Nations General Secretary said in the Transforming Education Unit Summit, education changes lives, economies, and societies. And in Portugal, it's very clear that we have made a lot of progress in these 50 years. But in spite of that, the Portuguese society is still has deep inequalities. And we know that social inequalities are fertile ground for the rise of these right-wing, populist, ultra-conservative parties. And that's what happened with us. It is very easy to manipulate the discontent, the disillusionment of people towards governments that don't keep their promises and don't solve people's problems. And so this is the result of these also policies. So the March election changed the political cycle in Portugal. We had 7 years of a socialist party. Now we have a right-wing government, a minority government. If they count on the votes of this right-wing party, they will have absolute majority, but so far they have drawn a red line and they say they are trying to not count on their support. We'll see how long they will keep this position, because as a minority government, they may not hold until 4 years, the 4 years of mandate. But at this moment, as I said, we know that with a right-wing government, privatization trends will intensify. We now again start to listen to the issue of free choice, school vouchers, so it comes again every time we have a right-wing party, it comes to the agenda. But of course, we know the role of the unions, and we, as trade union movement, have to resist and fight against these policies that represent a regression in civil rights. As Mike said, the agenda is the same: anti-immigration, anti what they call gender ideology, so it's a very strong discourse. Policies that put interests of the big economic and financial groups above people's dignity. Policies that lead to the dismantling of the welfare state, the devaluation of labor, and the erosion of democratic values. And as we heard last week in AFT convention, because I was privileged to be there and live an historic moment, but as we heard from many delegates, we, in the face of global threats, trade unions must respond with a strategic and coordinated action. And that's why this discussion is so important.
Thank you. Thank you so much.